Okay, welcome everybody to our show. I'm your host, Mike DeLuca. This is our third episode regarding the topic of regenerating your vision. And those of you who have watched previous episodes, you already know about the brilliance and genius of Dr. Glen Swartwout. So I'm going to briefly let you know that he's had almost 5 decades of working in the area of helping people regenerate their vision. He is a board certified optometrist. He is also a naturopathic doctor. He has also been helping people all over the world with working with natural, homeopathic, and natural herbal opportunities for helping them regain their vision. He's also trained thousands of practitioners in the arts of natural applications that can help with regenerating vision. So you can read more about it on the website, and we're going to give that website out, but here's a sneak peek. It is regeneratevision.com, regeneratevision.com. So, with no further ado, undo, and all kinds of do's, Dr. Glenn, welcome to the show again. Very excited to have you on again. This is our third interview regarding regenerating vision. And the topic today is all about diabetic retinopathy. So, welcome, Dr. Glenn.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Michael. Always great to be here and talk about health and how we can create a happier future than sometimes the prognosis that we get from our doctors. That started me on this path when I was 25, and I was told, best we can do is slow down the loss of vision that you're having, and by your 40s you'll be blind, legally blind. And so, as a budding eye doctor, that put me on a path to figure out, actually, as the professor told me, you should research the underlying causes of blindness, not just treat the disease, because disease is just a name for the problem that you have. It doesn't tell you why it's there, and it's usually multi-causal. If there's only a single cause, it's easy for science to figure it out. But if there's multiple causes, well, we'll just treat the symptoms. In modern medicine, we talk about managing the symptoms of disease. And a lot of these degenerative diseases like diabetes, they say, well, there's no way to heal it or reverse it. We can slow it down, probably not stop it. And that was the case for me with my vision. So diabetes is one of the top causes of vision loss in our culture. And
Mm.
it can happen with young people if they have juvenile onset type 1 diabetes. Happens also with type 2 diabetes, which is adult onset. And it generally, as you have the disease longer, there's more and more problems with the eyes and the kidneys and circulation throughout the body. So it's a degenerative process. But yet the body has the capacity to regenerate, has the capacity to heal, but only if we actually put our attention on the cause rather than just treating and managing the symptom. Symptom is an effect. We want to treat the cause. We have to find out what the cause is. So in my case of losing vision, the ultimate cause turned out to be mercury toxicity. And not that that was the only cause, but that was the primary. That was number one on my list. I would have died before I went blind if I hadn't found out about that underlying cause. I would have thought, oh, I'm losing my vision because I have a diagnosis and a prognosis and the treatment can't control it. But that's inside the box of conventional medicine. If we think
Mhm.
outside the box, we have to say, hey, what came before? And just because it came before doesn't mean we can't heal it. If we have, for example, in diabetes, mercury toxicity is a major factor. Oh, but that's rarely even looked at or considered or diagnosed or tested for in conventional medicine. Functional medicine may look in that direction. They should. Uh, One of the classic signs of mercury toxicity is breaking blood vessels. Well, that's one of the big early signs in diabetic retinopathy. Oh, the blood vessels start to break. There's damage to the blood vessels. What's causing that? It can be mercury as a component. When I had mercury toxicity, it was affecting my pancreas. If it had done enough damage if enough mercury is on the cell membrane of the islet cells, islets of Langerhans, or the cells in the pancreas, in the tail of the pancreas that produce the insulin, that attracts the immune system to say, in conventional terms, the immune system is attacking your pancreas. That's not the whole story. Why would it attack your cells? It doesn't if it's just your cells, but if there's something on the cell membrane that doesn't belong, it's actually attacking the toxin. It's trying to dissolve the toxin and remove it from that tissue. And if it's having a hard time, like with heavy metals like mercury, the immune system, it can grab onto the mercury and it poisons the immune cell. And so it can't really move it very far. And we call that autoimmune. Autoimmunity, the process of autoimmunity against the pancreas and the islet cells happens long before there's diabetes diagnosed. Before there's diabetes, there's metabolic syndrome. There's problems with weight gain. How much overweight and metabolic syndrome do we see in our culture now? It's like almost everybody. It's huge. So the amount, the frequency, the prevalence of this problem is going up and up as we become less well as a population. Why are we getting less well? We're spending more money on healthcare than any other country and on the solutions that that healthcare system provides, which is generally what? Drugs and surgery, which don't remove the cause of illness. They actually contribute to increasing illness. So again, we have to treat the cause. The solution is not a lack of toxins, a lack of drugs, a lack of damage, which surgery is controlled damage by definition. They can be, not that they can't be helpful in managing the disease, but they don't treat the cause of the disease. So that's primary
Okay.
in my book. Earlier we get at it, the better results, the easier it is to treat.
Okay.
The old saying, a stitch in time saves nine. Prevention
Sure.
is the best cure. It's best not to even know what you've prevented. Isn't that a
Sure.
lovely state? I didn't
Yeah.
know that I would have had a heart attack at this age if I, if I hadn't done that prevention earlier. There's a saying on a t-shirt that's my favorite. It says, if I knew I was going to live this long, I would have taken better care of myself. And the beauty of taking care of ourselves is we actually live longer
Yep.
and we experience less time, less years of aging related degeneration, damage, suffering, loss of vision. We can be healthy through the entire lifespan. The health span is becoming the term
Yep.
that we use. We want to increase not just our lifespan. When we do, we increase the health span. It's beautiful that it goes together. Uh,
Great. So in previous episodes, we talked about macular degeneration and causes and natural opportunities to help reverse that. We talked about glaucoma. We talked about cataracts. And so could you define for us what is diabetic retinopathy? What is retinopathy?
So the retina is I like to call it the photovoltaic panel. It's the solar panel for the body, in the back of the eye. It's actually embryologically, in other words, in the way it develops and grows from when we grow from one cell to many, it grows from the brain. It's part of the brain. Even though it's outside of the bony skull, it's in the bony orbit of the eyes, but that tissue comes from the brain and forms the retina. So it's part of the central nervous system and has the same kind of sensitivities. It has a blood-brain barrier. We call it the blood-retinal or blood-eye barrier. So it's harder for certain nutrients to get into that tissue compared to other tissues. It has that extra layer of sanctuary protection against toxins getting in. But for example, magnesium, one of the most important minerals, it's a macro mineral. We need it for about 3,000 enzymes that we know of so far as a cofactor for those enzymes to work effectively. And yet most magnesiums do not cross the blood-brain barrier. So far, I've found two types. So we formulate a wonderful, tasty drink mix powder, neuromagnesium that will feed those particular forms of magnesium into the retina, into the brain. And the brain is a huge part of vision too. I mean, vision doesn't stop at the retina. It just starts there by receiving light, but then the signals are sent to the brain. And then the big mystery, how the brain projects what we see out into the world. And we probably won't get into that today, but that's the spirit body and their actual mineral forms that are the substrate of the spirit body, that are in a ghostly form, that are actually crucial for all healing, because it's the intelligence in the body. Without the consciousness and the subconscious information processing of the spirit, the intelligence in the body, there is no life and there's no healing. Uh, we know, we can tell that a body is dead because there's no electrical energy. There's no EKG of the heart and there's no EEG from the brain. But then when we restart the heart, if a person has a heart attack in the hospital, suddenly they're back and they're conscious, and the electricity is moving, and their consciousness says, that's weird. I saw a body, that must have been me, but I was looking down on it from the corner of the room. So the consciousness, what we actually see is, when you see the stars, that's you. It's part of the function of your spirit. It's trans-dimensional. It's the bottom line is it's intelligent. It's miraculously, like life, incredibly intelligent, and it's what runs the show of healing. So it's smarter than we are, smarter than just the conscious mind. In psychology, they estimate the information processing of our conscious mind, of our thinking, which is related to the story of diabetes. We'll get there. Uh, the consciousness of thinking can process about 100 bits of information a second. That's not much if you compare it, say, to your computer. The information processing of the entire living organism is millions of bits of information a second. So your body is doing all kinds of things, and it's, again, very smart about what it's doing. Just like on a conscious level, you wouldn't say, I know there's these thousands of things that I really should do. I'm going to do them all today. How many will you get done? Nothing. Uh, so the consciousness of even this divine intelligence of the entire body will prioritize a few things to heal at one time. And that's where it's sending its energy. We can measure that energy electrically through the meridians of Chinese medicine. That's how I got started 40 years ago. Now we can do it remotely, even through the frequencies of your voice with a 10-second voice sample. You count from 1 to 10, and instantaneously we can see the analysis of those frequencies, and it tells us, oh, you're spending a lot of energy trying to heal the spleen pancreas meridian, for example, which goes directly through the pancreas. Or vision is a big stress right now. You're spending a lot of energy trying to heal that, the visual system. So we can actually use that information to guide our support for your healing, rather than intellectually using 100 bits of information a second to logically say, well, you have diabetic retinopathy, therefore we can do that. And that's important too. We do that. We say, oh, you have this condition. If you have advanced diabetic retinopathy, we know that it's a problem of blood vessels now not only being damaged, but the circulation is so damaged, you're not getting enough oxygen to the cells, and the cells are sending out a signal saying, give us more circulation, and the body then intelligently is locally there growing new blood vessels, but we know that those new blood vessels also are leaky blood vessels, and that contributes to further damage. And that's why they'll do laser to cauterize, to burn those new blood vessels, to cut back on the amount of tissue that's alive, so it's calling for less oxygen, so you have less of that cycle of degeneration. But that's not necessarily that's extreme, isn't it? We're gonna kill the retina so that the retina doesn't die. There's a counterproductive aspect
Yeah,
to it.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and so we look at, well, or they'll use drugs that will tend to suppress that function of new blood vessel growth. Well, there are botanicals, there's natural botanical medicine that has that function as well. And you don't need an injection in the eye. It's not a prescription drug. It is something that we don't recommend that everybody just, take, on their own off the shelf, because if you have an injury or a surgery, you need to be able to grow new blood vessels in order to heal. So you don't use that when your body needs to be in a healing mode, but it's useful, say in cancer, where there's new blood vessels that are growing a tumor, or in wet macular degeneration, which we've talked about, where there's these same kind of new leaky blood vessels contributing to the leakiness and the damage to vision. But here in
Okay, let's stop there because you mentioned something about um, remote voice analysis. So I think this is a good time to let people know. First of all, if you've been listening and watching our show, you know that the purpose of the show today is educational. We're not making a claim that you're going to hear things that will automatically diagnose, treat, or prevent diabetic retinopathy or any health condition. So, number one, need to restate that the purpose of today is for education. However, education is part of a multi-step process that Dr. Glenn uses. And to find out more about this, if you go to regeneratevision.com, the first step that's going to happen is you're going to be able to get, by signing up for our email list, you're going to be able to get his new free guidebook, right, about regenerating your vision, taking a new look at regenerating your vision. The second thing that's going to happen is you're going to be given a special opportunity at a discount price to take a remote voice analysis assessment. And that will enable Dr. Glenn, by just having you speak into your computer microphone and access this special recording mechanism, that recording of your voice will generate a report for Dr. Glenn, and he will be able to tell you all kinds of things that are going on inside your health. And that will then set the stage for step three, and that is by you providing medical information and answering a very thorough questionnaire that Dr. Glenn sends you. If you then sign up for a one-on-one personal appointment with him, and it's over Zoom, he will then be able to create a custom package of these botanicals and homeopathics and natural, treatment protocols that can help you on the road to regenerating your vision. So again, you want to go to regeneratevision.com, right? Get the guidebook, get the discounted voice analysis assessment, and then schedule a one-on-one consultation with Dr. Glenn. And it will be covering all kinds of things. Pretty much everything we've covered in the last few shows: macular degeneration, glaucoma, cataracts, and now diabetic retinopathy. The analysis will go through all of the health challenges, but more importantly, the things that are going on inside your body that are contributing to that can be worked on together. You and Dr. Glenn can work on that to remove the barriers that will allow your body to do what it's supposed to do, and that is heal itself. That's important. The body heals itself. We provide it with tools, assistance, information, and guidance, but the body does the healing. All right. So it's really important. Okay, Dr. Glenn, let's get back to, you talked a little bit about what retinopathy is. We talked about its relationship to diabetes. Can you talk about what happens if it goes untreated? And then we'll talk a little bit about how we can reverse it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the worst case scenario, untreated, it's degenerative, you lose vision. So, and that risk increases with the amount of years that you're dealing with diabetes, even if it is treated. The medical treatment, they consider that it probably slows down that process in most cases, about 90% of cases, if they get at it early and they give you the proper medical treatment, it's going to reduce your risk, but not to zero. And maybe 10% of people that doesn't, there's something else that might help, but the medical treatment is not even slowing it down. Um, so, um, so blindness is ultimate the ultimate thing that we want to avoid, and even partial loss of vision, but also just the health of the tissue, the health of the body. Uh, we risk having years of loss of function, degeneration, discomfort, becoming more dependent on other people. Vision, when people are surveyed, is the number one function that people would most like to keep working. If you think about all the different things that are hard to do without, really hard to do without our vision. And diabetic retinopathy affects the peripheral vision, which if you see somebody with a white cane, that's somebody who's lost their peripheral vision. Uh, you know, so we can't drive, we can't get around even without a seeing eye dog or a cane to feel our way through the environment. So it's very disruptive to our sovereignty as individuals. Uh, what was the other part of the question about how to prevent it, or?
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about how to prevent it, and then let's talk a little more detail about how your protocols work on reversing that.
Right, right. So, the prevention, again, it depends on what stage you're at, but whatever stage you're at, prevention has to do with healing the damage that's affecting us from the past. Think about the body is from the past, the mind is in the present moment, the spirit is actually from the future. We're becoming our fullness of ourself, which is a transdimensional, across and beyond space and time presence and intelligence. So it all meets here in the present moment. It's where we get to make choices and to navigate and create a different future. And so what we can do for preventing of problems in the future is actually to time travel to the past to some degree and heal those things that are still unfinished, damage and stress and accumulation of toxins that we've been exposed to in the past, whether it's miasms that we talk about in homeopathy, inherited epigenetic patterns, our current epigenetic patterns, which come from which genes are turned on and off based on the biofield, the body energy field, which is what we're measuring in the voice analysis, uh, or intermediate effects of maybe, like my grandmother was walking down the street as a young woman. And back at that time, they were spraying pesticides to kill mosquitoes, DDT, and they had a big truck and a big fog of pesticides just spraying everywhere. And she was walking on the sidewalk and they just sprayed her. Well, she became diabetic. We know that pesticides are a major cause of diabetes. I've mentioned heavy metals. I should also mention stress. Thinking in Oriental medicine, we learn that the spirit function, the spirit's through the whole body, not just the brain, by the way. And so we have emotions that are associated with different organs. We know the heart and joy is associated, right? And the liver and anger and the gallbladder and frustration. So we can look at what are the emotions of the pancreas? What stresses, what kind of emotional state tells us what our spirit is doing, our information processing is doing, is stressing the pancreas. Well, it's thinking is the associated function. So if we're having stressful thinking, which we call maybe worry, uh, then that is a sign, and that's a basic fundamental cause of stress on that pancreas health and tissue and function. So that's really something important to look at. Stress, if we look at any tissue in the body, the number one toxin that's deposited outside the cells in the tissue, in the connective tissue that's the home of the cell. It's like that's the ocean of fluid that the cell is like a little fish swimming in that fluid, That's where it lives. So in its living environment, the cell is going to experience a deposition over time if we're accumulating toxins and not cleaning them out faster than they're coming in from stress. The toxins we see in that extracellular space are metabolites, so breakdown products that haven't fully been broken down and eliminated, but the results of stress hormones and stress neurotransmitters, our stress thinking and our stress feeling. So that's amazing. And then to know that thinking stress is specifically going to target the pancreas. So, the another important pearl is that the pancreas, not the adrenals, not the autonomic nervous system, the pancreas is the most sensitive function in the body, not digestion. The pancreas, which is part of digestion, it's regulated by the autonomic nervous system, and it has a balancing act with the adrenals. But the pancreas is I call it the canary in the coal mine. It's the most sensitive organ to stress. So again, whether it's thinking stress or emotional stress, what makes us worry? Things that are not the emotion of the heart, love and, feeling good and everything's fine, placid waters in that ocean that the cell's swimming in, but some kind of waves are going on. Fears of the future, and it would be associated with kidneys. Uh, so the pancreas, to heal it, we have to consider and we have to heal on all of those levels. On the conscious level of our psycho-emotional state, uh, and there's multiple ways to get at that. But an example is that's been really well documented is German new medicine. They've found a way where they're healing people of cancer and other conditions like diabetes without any drugs or surgery, but with treating the core cause. If they can identify the trauma, the stress, the psycho-emotional trauma, and of course there can be physical trauma, there can be chemical trauma from toxicity, but we treat that original cause, that underlying core stress, and that can release the body to be able to heal, even though the original cause was in the past. The effects of the past are still being carried with us, and we call that disease. We call that aging. We call that degeneration. We call that loss of function, loss of adaptability and flexibility. Uh, so that's the goal of what we call accelerated self-healing, the process that I've developed that saved my life and saved my own vision, and that I've been developing continually, working with thousands of patients and clients ever since.
Okay, so we've covered a little bit about diabetes, then how diabetes affects the retina. We've talked about what happens with diabetes in the area of diabetic retinopathy and what can happen if it goes untreated. We've talked about that. We've talked about ways to treat diabetic retinopathy and do that naturally without drugs and surgery. And can you talk a little bit about prevention? How do we prevent ourselves from getting into this loop?
Yeah, so again, one of the earliest things that happens is autoimmunity, which is the immune system, from a conventional point of view, attacking cells of the body. But we have to reframe that and understand the immune system is way more intelligent than our thinking about it. It's actually attempting to clean out areas where toxins are getting to the cell membrane level and going to get inside the cell and block cell metabolism or kill the cell. So we can facilitate that cleansing process through what we call immune modulation, rather than normally, in medicine, we'd use immune suppression with steroids. The adrenals make steroids that regulate gently the immune system, but if we use real strong steroids, now we're suppressing the immune system. Better to restore immune function so it can properly regulate the immune system and support the immune system with what we call immune modulators from nature that help the immune system get the job done faster, easier, quicker, less stress, less inflammation, less damage, less autoimmunity, less less hyperimmunity and allergy conditions. So balancing and regulating, supporting, stimulating the body's own natural healing mechanisms rather than saying there's a symptom or a disease. How do we how do we shut it down? How do we stop that? No, the body's has a symptom or a disease expression because it's attempting to heal itself. We have to look behind the curtain and say, why is it doing that? How can we help it get the job done? Get over that, get on to the next healing process, which will be an older damage, an older ultimate cause that we can clear one after another. It's called retracing in homeopathy, where you'll be healing things from this year, and then suddenly you're healing things from last year, and then you're healing things from 5 years ago and 10 years ago, and childhood and family, inherited family patterns, uh, to ultimately get to your genetic potential for health. So it's a process. It's a step-by-step process, and it's just fascinating to see. I've seen so many things healed that in the medical literature, in medical training, it says no, this can't heal. It's irreversible. No, I've seen blinding eye conditions where the person was already blind with leaking blood vessels restore functional vision where they could pass a driver's test again. And the Harvard
Wow.
trained retinologist told me, I I've never seen this before. I've never, in my studies at Harvard, I've never heard about this possibility. I've never heard it, mentioned by any colleagues, but this is, right in my own office, I'm seeing it.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So then again, to review this process that you've talked about, first we have education. And so I think the first step for folks who are watching or listening is to, again, to go to regeneratevision.com, sign up for the Regenerate Vision guidebook, get on our email list, and then we recommend that you take advantage of a discounted voice analysis, right? Uh, that will give Dr. Glenn the ability of generating a very extensive report on what's going on inside of your body that is contributing to whatever challenge that you're having. Then I recommend wholly that you consider having a one-on-one appointment with Dr. Glenn, schedule an appointment with him. You can do that on that website. Purchase an appointment if you provide him with your medical records and fill out a very thorough questionnaire. You'll be able to have a one-on-one Zoom appointment with you and then put together a custom package of a variety of protocols based on your condition and what your assessment and what your one-on-one consultation has determined is the best course of treatment. You'll be able to begin moving forward with that. And again, giving the body what it needs to begin the process of regulating and healing itself. So for last time, that is regeneratevision.com. Go there, get the guidebook, get the voice analysis assessment, get the one-on-one consultation with Dr. Glenn, and then he will be able to create a custom treatment package for you.
I'd like
So we've
to
come.
share
Go ahead.
one more story is on my mind. I need to share this with you.
Sure.
It was just so revealing to me and discovering the science behind it. Uh, from a classmate of mine in naturopathic school, his partner was a nutritionist who had type 1 diabetes. So she was on insulin. And she called me and said, my insulin just isn't working. Blood sugars are super high. I do an injection. It doesn't bring it down. So something's not
Hmm.
working right. What can I do? What do you suggest? And so we implemented a special type of healing water that you'll learn about with as we talk more. You can ask me more about it. It's on our website. We'll be happy to share the information with you. But it's a type of water was discovered, a technology discovered in Japan, which was where I had my first practice in Tokyo. Um, and so I learned about it there. And they prescribe it for various degenerative conditions, including diabetes. And so a lot of households have it, and they have the highest longevity of any country. And that's just only one of many reasons why, but it contributes to that. And we recommend it for anyone to maintain and improve their health. The water is the number one thing in the body. And if the health of that water is optimal, I call it living water. If it's living water, it helps us to heal everything. It helps our cells to function and stay healthy. So as soon as she, being a nutritionist, she knew she should be drinking more water than she was, but she said she'd bring water, even filtered water, she'd bring it up to her lips and her body would just reject it. She couldn't force herself to drink it for some reason. It's not the right energy. And so had them put in this water system from the first day. Her body craved this water. She could drink it. It was rehydrating her cells and tissues with what I call living water. There's a lot of science behind that, which we can teach you. But the bottom line is, within 24 hours, her insulin was working again. It would just bring the level right down. Later I learned from research that they found in tissue studying cells and how they respond to insulin, that a healthy cell, when you bring one molecule of insulin near that cell, it'll open, there's insulin receptors that are what allow the sugar to get into the cells, right? And they found that one molecule of insulin at the same time would work like a remote control and turn on open up eight insulin receptors to bring sugar in. So what's the problem with insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome leading into diabetes? That communication is no longer happening. And if we don't have the right enough cellular energy to make that living water structure, you're not, one insulin now will have to follow the model that we learned in medical school. It's a lock and key model. Yeah, it's a lock and key, and the insulin is shaped just like the shape of the receptor. But you know what? That shape has a resonance, has a frequency, has a musical note, a tone, and that tone can be transmitted through the living water. Or the key can fit into the lock and unlock one insulin receptor at one time. That's a lot harder. That's a lot slower. That's insulin resistance, where that's taking place, where it can no longer broadcast the signal to a whole area of the cell at the same time. So understanding that, we can begin to understand how we can turn this around, get this, we have to heal the cells so they can hear the music that the pancreas is putting out. Because first, with diabetes, when we're moving into it, it's making more insulin. It's trying to get the job done. And then the cells are getting so unhealthy, they can't even keep that up. And now they're not making enough insulin. So it's a dynamic process. It's not all linear. You can't use just linear thinking to logic it out. You've got to begin to listen to the wisdom of the body and say, hey, body, what are you working on? Hey, body, what do you like? Would you like this? And it doesn't like drugs. 85, 90% of them, if we test them electronically on the body energy, they'll say, that's a stress. We'd need more of nature, more nutrients, more phytonutrients to detoxify that, then it's not helping us. Whereas natural medicines, herbs, nutrition, if they're clean and pure and proper and properly prescribed, properly matched to your needs, it's the opposite. 85% of the time from, say, an acupuncturist, the herbs that they're recommending will test, oh yeah, that's balancing, that's helping. The body is able to use that to heal faster. Again, it's already intelligent enough to know what it needs to heal. We need to be intelligent enough to stop talking long enough to listen and say, oh, that's what's happening. And it's always fascinating. It's always intuitively correct. And it always speeds up the healing process about 13 times faster than we were falling apart before we had that support.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, then again, people are going to be able to get information from you once they are
Yeah.
on your email list and once they have a consultation with you. So again, go to regeneratevision.com, get the guidebook, all kinds of information about everything you need to know about vision and vision health, vision challenges, natural approaches to working with that. Sign up for the voice assessment, the remote voice assessment. And then that's at a discounted price. And then you're worth getting a private consultation with Dr. Glenn, probably one of the most important investments you can make. Provide him with your medical information, that plus the results from the voice analysis will give him the picture he needs after talking with you to put together a package of the things you need to equip your body to do its job, and that is to live a healthy life. So again, it's regeneratevision.com. Dr. Glenn, the time has flown. So appreciate you
Mm.
being back here with us. We have covered so much information today and in previous shows. Our folks will be able to watch those previous shows on our YouTube channel. But again, thank you, Dr. Glenn. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for everything you've done for all the people whose health has been turned around by working with you. And thank you for all your service to life. And we look forward to having you back on the show at another time. So with that, thanks, Dr. Glenn. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you again in a future episode.